Hello and welcome to this session. I'm Raghav and you can find all my work on my website automationstepbystep.com. In this session we are going to learn about page factory, and do not worry if you have never learned this topic earlier or have never understood what exactly page factory is. I will start from scratch, and as always I'm going to go very basic step by step. So let's get started, and the agenda for today is we are going to see what is page factory and how to implement page factory. We are going to see a very practical step-by-step demo, and I will also share some useful tips with you at the end of this session. So let's get started with what is page factory. And page factory is a simple and easier and an optimized implementation of page object model in Selenium. So we have already learned about page object model and how to implement page object model in the earlier session. If I go to Google and just search for Selenium page factory, and let me show you the documentation. So if I go to this GitHub of Selenium and go to page factory, you will see here this is a class in Selenium, and in order to support page object pattern, WebDrivers support library contains a factory class. So this is a class within the Selenium library or the API that helps us to implement the page object pattern. And if I just search for page factory API or class, you should also see the documentation here. So you can see this is from the Selenium website, and here is the page factory class, and you can see all the methods here. So do not worry about all this, I will show you exactly how to implement. So this is the implementation of page object model in Selenium, and it makes the page object model concepts more optimized and inbuilt in Selenium. So here, as page object model, it also works on the same principles, that it separates the objects and the test scripts. And here we use a annotation at find by, which can be used to target or locate elements, and you can use any of the methods like id, name, css, linkText, partialLinkText, tagName, anything to find the elements. And then we also use a method called initElements, which will initialize all the elements on the web page. If you again see the documentation, you will find this method here. So here we have initElements. I will again show you practically in a moment. So this is what page factory is. It is a very simple and easier implementation of page object model, and the factory class is inbuilt in the Selenium library. Now let us see a demo how to implement page factory model in our Selenium framework. So here I will go to my project. You can follow this on Windows or Mac. So this is the project we created on Cucumber Java, and here if I go to the src test resources, we have our feature file. So I'm just going to take the login demo feature file that we have created earlier, where we are doing a login and we are using a username and password to login, and also we have a data table, that is we are getting data from here. Now even if you do not have this example, do not worry, let us see exactly how do we implement page factory. And here I'm going to the src test java package, where we have created our step definition, and in the page object model session we also created the pages package. So here, first step is I will create a class for each page. As we do in page object model, every web page on the application should have a corresponding class in our framework. So I will go here and let me create a new package first, so it is very easy to identify. I will create a new package and call this as page factory, and say finish. And inside this page factory package, now I'm going to create a new class. So here the website or the application I'm going to test is this example application from test project, where we are doing a login with the username, password, and then click on the login button. So for this page, that is the login page, I will create a class. So I can name it as login page, and just to identify that this is following page factory, I will say pf here and say finish. So we have got our class here. Now I will start creating the elements. So here we have username. So we have the username, the password and the login button. So this is what I'm going to use. I will say here web element, and I can give any name. I will say txt username, and that's it. I will keep on creating the names of the web elements like this, and I will also have to import web element from org openqa selenium. And now this is, we have just initialized or declared a web element and we have given a name here. Now I will use the annotation at find by, and if I press Ctrl spacebar, you can see this is coming from org openqa.selenium.support. If you see here, the package is this org openqa.selenium.support.page factory. So this is coming from the factory, and I will use this, and in the brackets I can now use any of the locators like CSS, ID, linkText. You can also use how. I will go very simple here. You can use name, partial text, xpath, anything. And here I will say, because I know in my application we have IDs available. If I right click and say inspect on any of the element like username, I can see here we have the ID property available for this and the value is name. So I'm going to use this. I will say here ID equals name, and you can also see it has imported all these libraries. So this is all we have to do to locate or to create a locator of any object on the web page. So we have done step number 2, that is create locators for all the objects, and let me complete this by creating locators for all the other objects. I will say web element, then for password I will create the name. Now this name you can take anything which can be easily understood, and then I will again say at find by, and here I know the ID of this object is password. Then I will say web element, and I have to create the button login, and here I will say at find by, and I know the ID property of this button is login. So that's it. I will save everything. We have done step number 2. Now step number 3 is we can create methods or the action methods for performing action on these objects. Now here I can create functions or methods for actions. I will say public void. Now you can create atomic actions like enter username, enter password and login, like one method for entering username, one method for entering password, and then click on login. Or you can also create a method for a valid user login. Both will work. In real world you may want to use a single method for a valid user login, but in our case, because we have our feature like enter username, enter password, and then a separate step for click on login, I'm going to create atomic methods. So I will create a method for enter username, and here inside this method now I will use this txt username. I will say txt, and if I press Ctrl spacebar it is auto completing, and I will say dot, and then I will say send keys, and I will give the data or the username I want to enter. Now here you can see I have not used driver.findBy like we used earlier in page object or in earlier sessions. This is the advantage. It will take care of all this. Using this annotation, it will take care of finding the element, and then we can directly use this name and then do our actions. So this is all you will have to do. Also, as this is not a good practice to hard code the data here, and this should be coming from the test scripts, I will take this as a input to this function. In the arguments I will say this will accept a username, and that username should go here, and this will enter the username. Similarly, I will create a function for enter password, and I will say string password here, and here again I will say txt password, the name that I have used, dot send keys, and this variable, and then I will say click on login, and here I do not need any data. I will directly say btn login dot click, and that's it. So you can see this is how we will create the functions, and this is how simple it is. Now we have done step number 3, that is we have created the methods or actions. Now we have to create a constructor to get the driver instance and also to initialize these elements. So here, as we have seen in the page object model session, I need to pass the driver that is from the test script so that the session is maintained. For example, let me show you. If I go to the test, the step definition of this feature file, which is this one, or let me show you the POM one that we created last time. So here we have a web driver, the Selenium web driver, which is running this test, which is opening the browser, and the session is here. Now the same driver should be passed to this page so that we can maintain the same session, and for that we can create a constructor. So constructor, as I told you in the page object model session as well, is a function with the same name as the class name and does not have a return type, and I will show you the advantage of that in a moment. So I will say public, and without any return type I will just give the same name as the class name, and bracket start and close, and a curly bracket start and a curly bracket close. So this is a constructor, and whenever we create any object of this page of this class, this constructor will always be called, and we can use this property to take advantage to initialize or to pass the web driver. So here I am passing web driver, and I will also have to create a web driver instance for this class. I will say here, let me also do it full screen so it is easy for you. I will say web driver, and I will have to import it from org openqa selenium. So this is the driver of this class, and here in the constructor we are getting the driver from the class which will be calling this class or creating the object for this class, and I have to make this driver equals to this driver that I am getting in the constructor. So I will say driver, which is this driver, equals to this driver. So I will say driver equals driver. Now of course you can use some different names so that you can identify. I can say driver one here, and like this will work, that is fine. However, what we normally do is we say we want to we want to say this driver is the driver of this class. So I can say this keyword, I can use this keyword, and now this driver will refer to the driver of this class, and this driver that we are getting here is coming from this here. So now this is done. We have got the driver instance. Now we also need to initialize the elements, and for that we can say we can use the page factory class and use the initElements method. So I will say here page factory dot initElements, and here I will pass the driver instance, and then here I have to give the class. So I can just say this keyword here which will refer to this class, or I can also give the class name like this. I will say login page underscore pf dot class. So whenever this will be called, all these elements will be initialized on this web page, and therefore we are putting this inside a constructor function so that whenever an object of this class is created, this will run and it will initialize all the web elements. So we have done step number 4 here. Now step number 5 is we have to update the test script so that it can refer the methods from this page factory class. And for that I will go to my step definitions package where I have all these glue code or the step definitions for the feature file, and I'm just going to take this login demo steps. I will copy this. So if you want, you can create a new class, but I'm just going to use this. We have created this in the earlier session, and I will copy and paste it here, and I will give it a name, login demo steps underscore pf, so I can identify this is for the this is calling the page factory concept, and I will say OK, and here it is. And let me also uncomment all this. This is what we commented in the last session of page object model. I will press control and / on my keyboard, and this is now all uncommented. Also, if I go to this login demo steps underscore pom class that we created in the page object model session, this I will again this I will comment out so that when I run the feature file, this is not called, and the steps are called from our page factory class that we are going to create now. So that's it. Let me save everything, and I will just close this. I do not need this. I do not need this either. Yes, so now we have our login demo steps underscore pf class, and here the first thing is I will create an object of the login page underscore pf class. So I will say here login page underscore pf, and I can give any name here like login, and that's it. So here it will create this object for the login page underscore pf class. Also, in case you want to know how do we create objects and want to learn some basic concepts of object oriented programming, you can always go to my website, that is automationstepbystep.com. and this is just in case you are a beginner in Java and you want to understand few concepts in detail. You can find a Java playlist here. So under programming section, you will see there is a Java playlist. This will take you to the YouTube playlist of Java, and here you will find these videos, the basic beginner videos on getting started with Java, and then these videos, that is what is object oriented programming with examples and how to create classes and objects. This will be very useful for understanding this concept. So this is something you can check. Coming back to the class, so I have created this object or an instance for the login page pf. Now wherever I want to use this, I will go here. For example, this is the function which is for entering username and password. Now I will use this object login dot, and here I will say enter username, and you can see I'm getting auto suggestion, and I'm not hard coding it because we are already getting this in the function as a string, as a argument, and this data is coming from the data table of this feature file. So I will use the same thing, username here, and then login dot enter password, and here I will use password, and now I no longer need these statements, so I can delete or comment these. So this was where we were finding the elements, locating the elements, and providing the data and everything within the test script. So this we have changed. Now we are following the page object model and we are following the page factory concept here. And then click on login. Again I will say login dot click on login, and I do not need this here, and I will save everything. And then we also have a function where we are checking that logout button is displayed. So for this again I will have to create a class. So I'm going to go to the page factory package, and here I can create a object and function for the logout button as well here, but this is only for the login page. And as per the concept of page object model, every page should have a separate class in your framework. I do remember in the page object model session I created the element and the function within this class. So if I go to this login page.java that we created in the page object model, I did create it here itself, which is actually not correct as per the rules of page object model. So I'm going to create a new class now under page factory. I will create a new class and I will say this is homepage underscore pf, and here I will create a object for logout button, and all the other objects of the homepage I can create here. And I will have to import web element from org OpenQA Selenium, and I will say find by I know id is there equals to logout, and I will also have to import this find by from org OpenQA Selenium support, and then I will create a method public void check logout is displayed, and here I will say btn logout dot is displayed, and that's it. And I will have to add the constructor as well. So for that I'm just going to copy this from the login page. I'm just going to copy this like from here, and I will paste it here. And of course the constructor has the same name as the class name, so that I will change here this name of the constructor, and that's it. And now in the test script I will also have to create an object for this page. So I will go to the top, and the reason I'm creating the objects here is so that I can use this in any of the methods of this class. So I will say homepage underscore pf, and I can give the name home here, and then here I will say in the function to check user is navigated to the home page, I will say home dot check logout is displayed, and I will remove or comment this statement and save everything. So we have done step number 5, that we have updated the test scripts, and now we will run and validate. Also, just to ensure that when I run my feature file, this is the class that gets actually executed, I will create a print statement. I will say syso control spacebar to autocomplete, and here I will say I am inside this login steps pf class. This is just to check if it is running the right scripts. So now I will go to my feature file and do a right click, run as cucumber feature, and let us see the execution. So it should open the Firefox browser and then run our test case. So yes, it opened the Firefox browser, and going to the application, and looks like it did not enter the data. Let me very quickly check the console here. So here if I check, this is fine. So you can see this is running from our class here login demo steps underscore pf, which is fine, and here it is running this. And now here when user enters this username and password, here we are getting a null pointer exception on this particular statement. Let me go here and see. Okay, so I believe I never created the object, or in other words I never called the constructor from the login page pf. So I need to do like this: login equals new. So unless I use the new keyword, it is actually not creating the object or not calling the constructor of the login page pf class. So now I will say login equals to new login page pf, and here I am also passing the WebDriver instance. So here I am passing this WebDriver that is here in the test script, and this is getting passed here to the constructor of login page pf, and if I press control and click on this, you can see it takes me to the constructor of this login page underscore pf class, and here we are passing that driver, which is then referring to this driver or is being made equal to this driver of this class, and then we are able to maintain the session. So now this should run. I believe also here, if I'm using this in a constructor, I should be using this keyword, then it should work fine, otherwise it can be a problem. Or you can separately create an object, but because we are using inside constructor, you can use like this. And now let me try again. I will go to the login demo features, and just in case you also face any issues, you can also troubleshoot like this, or you can also do debugging. What you can do is you can go and see where exactly you are getting an issue, and then you can create these breakpoints like this. So you can see I am going to this margin, this blue colored margin, and double clicking, which is creating these breakpoints. And then after you have created the breakpoints, you can go and debug. So if I right click and say debug, instead of run as, say debug as, and then select cucumber feature, what will happen is it will go to your breakpoints, it will go wherever you have your breakpoints, go until there, and then it will pause, and then you can do step-by-step execution and see where exactly is the issue. So just in case you want, you can do that. So I hope this should be fine now. I will do a right click on my feature file and say run as cucumber feature, and let us see the execution this time. So it opens the Firefox browser, and yes, this time it is running fine. And this was the first set of data. Now it is running with second set of data, and this is all running fine. So we have done all our steps. Now some useful tips. Tip number one is we can use an annotation cache lookup, and here if I go to my this class login page pf or any pages class, here in any of the elements you can use this annotation at cache, and if I press control spacebar, I am getting this auto completion. So it is again coming from Selenium support library. So what this will do is, if you are working with a very basic website and you know that the locators are not going to change and it will always remain the same, so in that case you can use this cache lookup. So what this will do is, once it has located the elements on this web page, it will then store it in the memory, and whenever you want to use the element again, it will not go to the page and do all the identifications again. It will use the memory or the cache lookup to interact with the element. So this is one annotation you can use. So it can be used to instruct initElements to cache the element once it is located, so that it will not be searched all over again whenever you are calling the method where it is used. And this is how it is used. You just have to use the annotation at cache lookup, and you have to be very careful when you use it. In case you are using any Ajax applications or any applications where the objects can change on user actions, this will not work. So do not use this if you are using Ajax or these kind of applications. Also, if while using this you are getting stale element exceptions, then also you can avoid using this annotation. So this was tip number one. Tip number two is, whenever we handle Ajax applications with Selenium, we face a lot of issues with loading time of the elements, because in Ajax different elements can load at different times, and then elements can also behave differently on user actions, and therefore we may get no element exceptions a lot of time if we are handling Ajax with Selenium. So there is a solution for this in page factory class, and that is Ajax element locator factory. Here you can actually set the timeout for the web elements, and this is how you can use it. So you can say here in the constructor, you can say Ajax element locator factory, and you can give any name. Let me say factory here equals new Ajax element locator factory, and then here in the search context I will say driver, and then you can give the timeout in seconds. So let's say I say 30 seconds. You can increase this timeout as per the needs of your application, and then after this you can just put this factory here. So instead of this, let me put this here, and here I can say factory. So now we are using this ajax element locator factory with a timeout of 30 seconds, or you can directly say here like this, new ajax element locator factory, and here I will use driver and say 30 seconds, and then I can do it in a single sentence instead of these two sentences. So this will work if you are using any ajax or related applications, and this is tip number 2. So here in the above code, it will wait maximum for 30 seconds until the element is loaded, and in case the element is still not available up to 30 seconds, then it will throw no such element exception, but it will wait until 30 seconds and will not throw this exception if we are able to get the element within 30 seconds, and you can increase the timeout as you wish. Tip number 3 is, with page factory we can also locate lists of element, something like this. Let me show you an example here. So here I can say, let us say I want to create a list of element. I will use list and list of web element, and I will say my links, and then here I can say, so I have to also import this list from some library, so I am using Java util, and then here I can say at find by, and I can say partial link text, and here I can give some text. So what this means is, on this web page, all the links which have this value Raghav will all get stored into this list called my links, and then I can use this in any way I want. So this is how you can use this in page factory. And also one more thing that will be useful to you is, one more way of finding elements is, for example, so here if I say web element, and let me say any element ABC, I can here give the notation find by, and then there is another way I can say how. So how exactly I want to find this element, and I will say how dot, and you can see all these ways: id, css, linkText, name, xpath, etc. Let us say id, and then I will say using equals, I will give the name of the id name. So this again will get imported from Selenium support. So this is also how you can use to identify elements with page factory, and this is how you can use page factory. I hope this session was very useful for you. You can do some more hands-on and let me know if you face any issues. I will meet you in the next episode. Thank you for watching.